So hello and welcome to another episode of the Gaelic Statsman podcast. I'm your host Matthew Hurley. I'm joined tonight by Liam White from the Faithful podcast to discuss this weekend's All-Ireland Senior Football Championship semi-finals plus the Tailteann Cup final there as well. The only other senior game in action is the senior LGFA relegation playoff, and then there's a few intermediate games in Camogie and LGFA to look at as well. Shout out to our sponsors at Capture Athletics. If you want best gear around, check them out if you haven't already. So yeah, Liam, before we were on air, obviously here, you did start your first live stream on your own podcast, and I forgot to shout out your own podcast towards the end. Just before we get delusional towards the end of it, before we get into the action, do you want to explain to the viewers your new podcast called the Faithful Podcast? So it should be a good show, more so for Offaly J. And I think he's on mute there, so I think I'll keep anyway. Yeah, so Liam has his own podcast anyway, the Faithful Podcast. All things about all things Offaly J. So yeah, should be very interesting indeed. Until he gets organised there, but anyway, look, we'll talk about Liam's podcast in a bit. We'll go straight into it and go into the week of Gaelic games before we get into the action here, and yeah, Liam is going to come back in just a while. Oh yeah, I think he's ready to go, and he's still on mute, so we'll keep going with. Sorry about this, folks, but we'll keep going with the other bits, the week of Gaelic games, and the only bit to discuss really the week of Gaelic games is the managerial departures, and there were a few this week, obviously, with Cavan getting rid of Raymond Gallagher. Well, Raymond Gallagher stepped down as Cavan senior football manager. You had Paddy Tally stepping down as Derry senior football manager as well. So a lot of change in terms of managerial positions, and the managerial merry-go-round does keep continuing. You look at obviously Paddy Tally 1 year in the job, no win on the board. You only got 2 draws as well out of possible, what was it? I think it was out of 11 games or 12 games or something like that as well. So it was a horrendous kind of run for Paddy Tally. Obviously Raymond Gallagher, it's kind of different because if Darren McVeety gets that point or gets that score over against Cork, then we would have been talking about Cavan in Division 1, but ultimately they did beat Mayo, but it was a sour end to the year more so for Cavan football. They got heavy beatings off Donegal, Tyrone and Kerry, so difficult beatings to take. So in general, yeah, some interesting managerial departures there. Sean O'Malley's coming in with a comment here. I think it's next year bus for that Derry squad. Absolutely, Sean, absolutely. And it should be very interesting to see how it all transpires with Derry, who they get in. Will be Conor Gilligan, we'll have to see. We'll see though, is Liam's audio working? Is this her? I think it's no. It's still out of action. So yeah, some interesting developments obviously. And I was going to read actually the statement from Derry GA that was about Paddy Tally's departure. I'll bring it up in just a sec. Raymond Gallagher obviously leaving as well. Some very interesting managerial decisions there. Look at Paddy Tally's the statement made by Derry J. Obviously, Cara O'Kane actually came up with the scoop last night in terms of that Derry job and things like that. So the statement from Derry J does read, as we wait for Liam to come back in. Derry J can confirm Paddy Tally has stepped down from his position as senior football manager today following the conclusion of the 2025 inter-county season. Paddy brought integrity and energy to the role, along with deep commitment to the players and the county. His efforts to develop the squad, build a strong team environment and guide a group of emerging players in the senior football team was greatly appreciated. As we welcome Liam back into the stream, I think we will see.
Can you hear me now?
And we can. Absolutely brilliant.
The phone rang twice and I had to, it just messed up my audio. I don't know why, but yeah. Sorry about that.
No problem at all. So before we were going to discuss your new podcast, the Faithful Podcast, but before that, obviously, we jumped into the managerial departures. Your opinions on Raymond Gallagher leaving Cavan and Paddy Tally departing Derry?
Yeah, 8 months in charge of Derry and he's gone. You know, they're going through a lot of managers at the moment. I suppose before anything else, thanks for having me on again. Really appreciate it. But yeah, the everlasting mystery of football managers departing. It's it almost feels like it should become a drinking game at this point. Take a shot for every time a football manager leaves. You know, it's absolutely it's incredible. But yeah, look, it was a difficult enough season for Derry, albeit, if we're going to be honest, apart from the Donegal the Ulster match against Donegal, the matches they played in the group stages were actually decent enough. You know, like they put up a good fight against Armagh, the Athletic Grounds. Against Dublin, they could easily have won that game in the third round. And really, they should have beaten Galway. They absolutely should have beaten Galway. I think they'll be looking back on that with the biggest regret throughout the entire season. Excuse me. But obviously, I think it was Westmeath last year since they last won a championship match, or even a match in general, which for a team of Derry and the players that they have, the McGuigans of the world, the Conor Glasses of the world, like it's just, look, it isn't good enough if we're going to be honest with you. They should be winning games at this stage, even just to win one game. But look, it's disappointing for him. He's gone after 1 year. It'll be interesting to see who takes over from that role now. From a Cavan standpoint, like you said, yeah, if they got that one last score against Cork, they'd be a Division 1 side next year, which is absolutely mental. And I mean, who would have thought? But do you know what it is? The win against Mayo now, in hindsight, probably not much of a surprise, as more so what we've come to expect from Mayo, that they'll lose to a Cavan, but then they'll go and destroy Tyrone, you know, and they'll put up a great battle to Donegal. You know, it's just it's in the nature of Mayo football, to be honest with you. But I think you could tell, though, that, look, I mean, I don't think they were even terrible against Kerry, but there was never really a notion or really a feeling that they were ever going to beat them in the qualifier round. They got fairly destroyed by Donegal and Tyrone in the group stages, so probably maybe best to move on. I suppose one great bit of news is that Oisin McConville is staying on with Wicklow, and I think that's a great move for Wicklow. You know, he's had a fantastic season, knocking out the likes of Westmeath in the Tailteann Cup, finishing top of the group, which contained us, Waterford and Laois, you know. So it's been a fantastic season for them. They could easily have won that Tailteann Cup semi-final as well against Limerick. So, no, I'm delighted to see that he's staying on. He's given a lot of years to Wicklow football. And, I think keeping him on is a massive boost to the county. I think he could bring them on next year. And, I mean, who knows what could happen next year with them.
Exactly. So a few comments in here. First with Gavin O'Reilly. Could be tricky for Derry in Division 2, or could they bounce back? You look at who was in Division 2, 2 All-Ireland semi-finalists, of course, in Tyrone and Meath. So it will be very, very interesting. And you look at Louth, obviously, Joe Brennan's left his post as Louth manager. Cavan, obviously, as we mentioned, Ray McGallagher as well. You have the two teams that came up at Offaly, Kildare, and then you have Cork kind of stuck in the middle. I don't know what's going to happen in the next few weeks with John Cleary and Co. Are they going to stay on as in the Cork backward team? Sean Abadi say here, Tony McEntee for the job. Kieran Mina is another one. I heard Conor Gilligan. I've heard his name being mentioned, but obviously there are interviews that Derry want their old manager in charge of them. Obviously, if you know, you know. But yeah, it should be very interesting to see what happens with Derry. But as you mentioned, with Oisin McConville staying on with Wicklow, another interesting manager that is staying on and was offered another 3-year term. Brian Lowen switching over to the Coles with Clare. Obviously, horrendous year probably for the All-Ireland champions. Only 2 wins on the board, one that really mattered against Limerick in the league. In the Munster Championship, it didn't really matter after that. Brian could have easily walked away from Clare, but he is staying on. Clare County Board wanted to stay on as well. Ultimately, Liam, do you think that's the right decision from the Clare County Board?
I suppose it's the right decision in the fact that he did win them in All-Ireland, and I think other than this year, he has done an excellent job with Clare. You know, like he's got them to Munster finals over the years, and I mean, look at the Limerick sides that he had to go up against, and he put up great battles to them as well. Came close to knocking out Kilkenny in 2023. In 2022, they were blown away by Brian Cody in his penultimate game as Kilkenny manager. But listen, look, he won an All-Ireland with them last year, and look, this year wasn't a good year by Clare standards. Like you said, ironically, the 2 wins they had all year were over Limerick, and both of them in the end just didn't matter. You know, it's quite hilarious when you think about it. But look, there still is potential in Clare to do something next year. You know, this could have just been one of those years where they just dipped off. It's hard to know, but yeah, it's an interesting enough development. Whether they could have maybe moved on, whether Brian thought about moving on, I don't know, because look, he'd won an All-Ireland, but does he still maybe think that there could be a Munster title in Clare, particularly now after seeing what Cork are after doing to Limerick? There's maybe a window open there again, but at the same time, could Cork build from here and go from strength to strength? it's hard to know. But look, I think he was well entitled to a new deal because of winning the All-Ireland last year, and I just think this year was just, there was a lot of issues for Clare, so I think they just need to try and park this year and move on to next year. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see. I feel maybe if next year doesn't go well, he could walk, maybe. I don't know, because having one off year is maybe not ideal, but having two would probably be could be the juggler, to be honest. Just so yeah, it'd be interesting to see what happens next year with that.
Definitely would be, and we will get to the action soon, but I have to mention your own podcast, the Faithful Podcast, before we get into the action, deep dive into it. Do you want to explain to the viewers what we will expect in the next few weeks out of the Faithful Podcast? An interesting journey for yourself.
Do I want to explain? Yeah, so I've just completely robbed you, Seamus, and Aaron's idea of doing a podcast, but yeah.
But you're doing about club, so...
Huh?
You're doing about club.
Yeah, true. Yeah, so I've just launched the Faithful Podcast on my YouTube channel. The first live video went up this evening. I did it with, ironically, my own father, Damien, who is a proud Kilcormac Cloghey man, proud GA man. I would say knows this stuff, but I don't want to be building his ego up too much. But yeah, no, really enjoyable. We're going to be doing previews and reviews of the Offaly Championship in hurling and football, and we'll dive into camogie and ladies football as well whenever we can. And yeah, no, I'm looking forward to getting involved with it. I'll try to get the boys on at some stage. We'll delve outside of Offaly as well from time to time as well. And yeah, no, looking forward to doing it. And yeah, thanks to yourself and Seamus and Aaron for the inspiration. I genuinely mean it. And yeah, no, looking forward to it now.
Definitely looking forward to viewing many more episodes of the podcast in the next few weeks. And anybody that hasn't subscribed to Liam, subscribe to him right now, obviously. Well, after you watch this podcast, obviously. But we will get into the games, and we will get into the All-Ireland Senior Football Championship semi-finals. The first one on Saturday between Kerry and Tyrone, a rivalry as old as time, obviously, on Saturday at 5 p.m. live on RT2 from Croke Park, obviously. And yeah, Liam, it's kind of an interesting game when you look at it. Both sides have had up and downs this season. Kerry more recently, obviously, losing to Meath, and then the higher end of the spectrum, that performance against Armagh, which was absolutely superb, scintillating at times. Tyrone, obviously, getting relegated for Division 1, albeit with 7 points, losing as much as they did against Mayo, but they proved against Donegal, against Dublin, and against Cavan as well, to be fair, what a good side they can be. So, what sort of game will we expect on Saturday out of these two?
Titanic battle. That's what I'm expecting. I'm really looking forward to it. I think this could be one of the best matches we see in a long time, and mostly down to the attacking forwards and the attacking talent on both teams. I mean, like you mentioned, Kerry the last day were excellent, especially when their backs were against the wall. And I don't care what anyone says. That's a terrific Armagh team. And Kerry were down, was it 5 points at one stage at the start of the second half, and they kicked 12, 13 points in a row. Like, that's just like, you just don't do that to the reigning All-Ireland champions, especially in Croke Park as well. Like, you just don't do that to a team like that. Like, you look at Shawnee O'Shea the last day, was instrumental. He was nobody could have stopped him the last day. The 2 pointers he was kicking off his left, off his right, were absolutely savage. David Clifford, I mean, what, he get 7 points the last day, and I feel like half of Europe has seen the score that he got from that awkward angle as well. Just the way he glided past and just stuck it over with his left foot, gave the fist bump to the crowd. I mean, just, if anyone, I just don't get how anyone questions this man's ability or questions him in general. I just think he's so naturally good, and he's so athletic, and he's almost a perfect build for a footballer. He's outstanding. But yeah, when Kerry had to turn up, they turned up, because they hadn't played a Division 1 team since the league final, since Mayo, you know, and there were question marks over them. Can they compete with a Division 1 team? Can they get up to scratch with them? Have they been properly prepared? And well, you saw it the last day. Paddy Clifford came off the bench. Micheál Burns came off the bench, made huge impacts for him, especially Paddy. They're a completely different side when he's amongst us. You know, he's setting up scores, he's dictating the play, and he's able to take a score as well. But yeah, to score 32 points against the All-Ireland champions is, like, to score 32 points in a football match is outrageous, to be honest with you, more than anything else. Even with the 2 pointers, it's still just an incredible scoreline. So I can only imagine the hype around Kerry for this game, and I can only imagine the hype around the rest of Ireland for the taking as well. So, but Tyrone, they won't be simple. They absolutely will not be simple. They've never ever been a simple team, especially when they do get to Croke Park. And against Dublin, you had the game against them. I think if the game had gone on a bit longer, I think Seamus had referenced it in his podcast, had it gone on a bit longer, that could have been a bigger scoreline. It ended up 23-16, but Tyrone were ending that game like men on fire. Their energy levels were through. It's almost as if they just decided to start playing in the last 10 minutes, and you saw the difference in quality between them and Dublin at the moment. The way they controlled the game was fantastic. And really, like you mentioned there, they got relegated with 7 points in the league, which I'm still fascinated by, to be honest with you. And apart from really the Mayo game, I haven't seen them really have a bad game in the championship this year. Like the Armagh game, okay, there were spells in that game when Armagh were always having maybe a 3-4 point lead in front of them, but that game went down to the final minute. They could easily have snatched victory there and found themselves in an Ulster final, which, I mean, they bet Donegal in the first round in the group stages, so who's to say they couldn't have bet them in an Ulster final in Clones? You just never know. But yeah, no, for to get the wins there, to get the win against Tyrone, which was against Tyrone, against Cavan, was fairly easy work. The way they won against Dublin was outstanding. And yeah, like, I mean, when you look at the forwards I mentioned the forwards that Kerry have, but the forwards that Tyrone have, like Peter Hart, Darragh McCurry, Dara Canavan, Rory Canavan, Mahi Donnelly, I mean, Kieran Daly, it's beautiful to watch. I'm jealous that they have those players, to be honest with you. I was delighted to see Owen McComb getting a game the last day as well. I tipped him to be the young footballer of the year a few months back. Granted, I thought he might have gotten a few more games with the seniors, but I think, wasn't he named under 20 footballer of the year? So I was sort of half right. I'll take it as a half victory, but I love watching him play. I think he's going to be a super. He kind of reminds me in a way of Cathal McShane, but I think he could be better potentially in the future. Genuinely, just the way he plays football is absolutely outstanding. But yeah, this genuinely could be a thriller that we could be witnessing at the weekend. It would be a very, very fitting All-Ireland final. They've met twice in All-Ireland semi-finals since 2019. They've both won each. We had the drama in 2021 with the COVID semi-final, which I'd say in hindsight now, Kerry just wished they took the bait and took the victory and ran to Croke Park to play Mayo. But yeah, it's really hard to separate these two sides. But I've backed them all season, and after that Armagh performance, I can't go with anyone else but Kerry. I think Kerry now are on course to win the All-Ireland this year. I know you don't
prediction,
work, man, but
we should have beaten Kerry in the Munster Championship. I'll take that to the grave. But anyway, he's sort of saying here, Kerry versus Donegal. He predicts the Kerry-Donegal final. Sean O'Malley saying here an interesting point. Should Tyrone start on McElhone? I'll throw that one to you, Liam, because you tipped him for Young Player of the Year. Should they start him?
See, the problem is Tyrone have so many good forwards and McElhone just hasn't played a lot this season. Now, it's sort of similar to maybe like Diarmuid Healy for Cork. I believe these players are good enough, but it's about maybe timing. Like Diarmuid Healy's now probably going to start the All-Ireland final, and a big reason for that in a way is because Seamus Harney won't be there. So you're thinking, McElhone, really, you'd probably have him maybe starting, but only if one of Tyrone's forwards were injured, because their attack line is just so good. Now, Jesus, would he weaken it? Absolutely not. If anything, I think he might improve it. But I just think if you have a winning formula that you've been sticking with for the last couple of games and it's working, then I think it'd be the wrong time to change it for an All-Ireland semi-final. No different to Tipperary not starting Noel McGrath last weekend. Just if you're in the game against Kerry with 15, 20 minutes to go and you have a young 20-year-old or 19-year-old, whatever he is, in there ready to pounce, then, and especially against a potential tired Kerry defence, like if you bring him on and he's going up against a tired Gavin White, if he's going up against a tired Jason Foley, Dylan Casey, Paul Murphy, then it could be an issue for the Kerry backline. So I think I would probably leave him on the bench for the moment, but at the same time, if they did decide to start him, by God, he wouldn't be weakening it, that's for sure.
And Sean is asking, Sean's on fire with the questions tonight, I have to say. I wonder how Kerry's midfield will do against Tyrone. They proved everyone wrong against Armagh, and there's a lot of experience, and they've had Kerry's number in the past. And that is an interesting point, actually, really interesting point by Sean O'Malley there. Tyrone obviously have Con Kilpatrick and Brian Kennedy in midfield. But when you look at not just Kerry winning the Armagh kickouts the last time out, but how they utilised the ball in the last game. 13 lost kickouts by Armagh. Kerry got 12 scores off at 9 1-pointers, 3 2-pointers. Kerry overall had a 75% shot accuracy in the entire game. Like, the way Kerry utilised the ball when they won it, when they won turnovers, when they won kickouts, was absolutely superb. The question is, though, will they win that amount of ball as they did against Armagh, against this Tyrone midfield?
Well, the way that they, like you said there, they utilised the ball after winning all those kickouts. Like, every time I looked down, Armagh just could not catch a break with the kickouts in the second half. They could not get to grips with Kerry, whether it went long or whether it went short. Now, do I see that maybe happening this weekend? See, maybe not, because surely Tyrone would have looked at that game from Armagh and learned about that midfield and learned about the kickouts, especially with how once Kerry win it, like Kerry's model every single time they go out to play a football match, and even during the old rules, which is why I admired them. I admired them as a county. They just think forward. They don't think about going backwards. They always think forward, forward, forward. And once they get the ball, they win a kick out from the 45-yard line, 60-yard line, midfield. Their first thought is get that ball to Shawnee O'Shea, get that ball to David Clifford, get it to Paul Ganey, who ironically is named on the bench this weekend, but nevertheless, and Paudie Clifford's named on the bench. Well, he's named as 20, but I reckon they might name him to start, possibly maybe over Micheál Burns. But anyways, I think Sean O'Brien and Joe O'Connor are going to need the weekends of their lives, to be honest with you. Especially, I think Joe O'Connor is someone who will have a massive, massive game. Sean O'Brien needs to have a massive, massive game, especially up against this Tyrone midfield. It's a very, very intriguing battle. I will say that. See, as I always say, you could win all the kickouts in the world you want. You can win all the puckouts in the world you want. It's about what happens after that. If you lose all your kickouts in a game, but you turn over them all and you get scores out of it, then you'd be thinking nothing of the kickouts. But then, like Kerry the last day, if you're winning 13 in a row and getting 12 scores out of it, then it's a master plan as well. So I suppose, like you said, it all just comes down to what the midfield or what the half forward line or the half back line on each team does with a kick out afterwards, if they win it or not. So that'll probably be the most interesting aspect from my perspective.
Yeah, exactly. It should be very, very interesting. Right. Just an off chance comment. Obviously, Acers must think it's hurling's week, but it's next week, Acers. I will say that the hurling preview is next week, but I will allow it. Harcourt Street was full of Cork supporters last Saturday, and Nye Coppers with mental free entry with match tickets, and he's saying they're all Cork trains sold out for the All-Ireland final. So yeah, well, I went straight home after the final. I didn't go to Coppers. So yeah. Most people have worked the next week, but look, look at Kerry's score. Yeah. I thought you were going to say something there, but anyway.
No, I was waiting for you.
We'll move on to Kerry's journey to the final and their scores before we get on to Tyrone. So we'll look at Kerry's journey to the final there, and obviously the game that I did mention there. They beat Cork, but after extra time in Super Valley Park, he 321 to 125. A lot to thank Joe O'Connor for that night in the park. They hammered Clare, the Munster final, then 420 to 21 points. They comfortably beat Roscommon 380 to 17 points. After a brilliant second half display, they beat Cork, eventually 128 to 20 points, but then lost to Meath 122 to 16 points. And that's when their season could have gone a different direction, but Kerry hung in there, obviously hammering Cavan 320 to 117. And then against Armagh, that exceptional display in Croke Park, beating it by 32 points to 121. They've averaged a score 222 per game and conceded an average of 119. You look at the top scorers there, David Clifford with 7 goals and 44 points. The top scorer for play and overall in the championship. And I don't think he's going to be caught really with the people in action there behind them. I don't think they're going to catch David Clifford at all. Sean O'Shea, 1 goal and 41 points. Paul Ganey with 2 goals and 10 points. It'll be interesting to see if he starts as well as a late replacement. Dylan Ganey with 12 points. Joe O'Connor with 1-5. You could see Killian Spillane, Micheál Burns, Tony Brosnan, Paudie Clifford and Gavin White and Barry Dan O'Sullivan on the list from a Kerry point of view there. Look at those lists, Liam, there. The top scorers list. David Clifford, 7 goals and 44 points. Sean O'Shea, 1 goal and 41. Would you see that as a negative for Kerry, that they're reliant on them too? Or do you see the likes of Paul Ganey or look at the list there. Dylan Gainey stepping up for this semi-final.
Well, I suppose the only thing is those are the two go-to players for Kerry. Do you know, that is the only thing. Like, they are going to be the lads that are going to be looking for. They're going to be looking for the whole time during the game. Do you know, so it's kind of it's sort of understandable that they are the ones that are always getting the scores for them, particularly when you have a generational player like David Clifford in your team. Do you know, and I mean, Seanie O'Shea the last day got 12 points in one game. Do you know, so he was just absolutely on fire the last day. But you know, look, like you said there, Kerry have an excellent spread of scores in their team. Like, Paddy Clifford can get you 3-4 points in a game. To be honest, like you mentioned there, Joe O'Connor against Cork in the first game down in Páirc Uí Chaoimh, he was unbelievable that night, and you saw the rocket of a goal that he got. You know, he's capable of doing something like that. Paul Gainey, if he plays, Conor Gainey, you know, Dylan Gainey as well. Like, they have players there that are capable of getting scores themselves. Even Brino, how do you pronounce it?
Brino Bioglia.
Yeah. Bioglia. I've been butchering names at work all day. Leave me alone. But yeah, like they have players that are so attack minded that they will go for the jugular every time. But look, it's no different to every other team. Every team has that one player that's so far out ahead of everybody. But I mean, you have to get the ball to these lads as well. That is the thing. You know, like, David wouldn't be able to get all these scores if there weren't lads behind him feeding him all the passes to him and winning the ball back and doing the dirty work and stopping scores up the other end. So, you know, I suppose there's perspective to all that, but at the same time, you do have to think to yourself, right, David's been on fire pretty much all season. I don't recall a bad game he's had really all season, and the stats prove it there. 7 goals and 44 points is absolutely outrageous. Maybe the Meath game, because they all kind of had an off day that day, but even then, I think from what I hear, David was still probably their best player on that day. But I suppose when you do think, right, is David Clifford due a bad game potentially in the semi-final or the final? Is Sean O'Shea potentially due a bad game? Because they don't have them usually. If they are due to have bad games, and they are to be this weekend, then Kerry need those players to step up, because otherwise those lads will step up and they'll get them over the line. It's the way they've been going over the years. But yeah, I suppose that will be a small bit of a concern for them, that if those two are to both have an off day. Now, I don't expect the two of them to have an off day, because like I mentioned there, David Clifford got 7 points the last day, but Seanie O'Shea got 12. Whereas David could go out this weekend and score a hat-trick like he did against Cavan, and Seanie O'Shea could score 3 points and all from frees. Do you know? So it's a case of trying to keep one of them quiet. You might be able to, but keep them both quiet is the big challenge for Tyrone. And but yeah, I suppose, like you mentioned there, it can be a bit of a concern, because if they do manage to keep the two of them absolutely quiet, and given how good they are and the angles that they can get scores from and the way that they get their scores as well, and the amount of players that they have following them every game as well. Because let's be honest, Clifford's going to be probably triple marks this weekend. Seanie O'Shea is probably going to be watched 70 minutes of the game. Like, you'd be thinking Páirc Hamsey's the perfect candidate for Clifford. Well, he could be the perfect candidate for Sean O'Shea. That's the truth of it. You know, he could be deployed out potentially at centre back if they're getting no luck with him. So, you know, it'll be interesting to see. But I think, given how good they are, I don't think it's an issue for them until the two of them have a bad game at the same time.
Very interesting commentary here from Peter Griffin, and I haven't noticed until he actually said it. Clifford is way more fired up this year. Look at the reactions to even simple, easy scores. Like, that is a good point, to be fair. You look at his reactions to so many of the scores this season. Peter has another comment in here. Kerry are more ruthless this year than we've seen in a long time. And when you look at it, I think they had a shooting accuracy in extra time against Cork. I think over 80%, 75% against Armagh as well. I think Kerry have been scarily good in shooting accuracy for as long as I can remember anyway. But I think last year they kind of fell down a cliff of it. I think there was one stage of the game against Armagh last year, they had 30% shot accuracy. That was horrendous stuff. But this season they've massively improved on that. And you could look at Clifford as well. Like, there's an argument to say he's fired up this year to potentially win another. He's only won one All-Ireland senior title, which is amazing in its own right.
That is amazing. You know, it is crazy to think he's only got one. But he will end his career with more than one. You know, we won't beat around the bush. He will eventually get more than one. You know, it's just this Kerry team is, in my opinion, too good to not get more over the course of the next like David Clifford was what 18 in 2017. He's what 25 now. He's probably still got a good 8, 9, 10 years left in him. So he will definitely get a few more. But and sure, geez, if he ended his career with 4 All-Irelands, 5 All-Irelands, although in Kerry that seems like he could have gotten more. Jesus, I wouldn't complain with 4 or 5 All-Ireland medals at the end of my career. Do you know, that'd be a savage achievement. And plus, he played in 23, played in 2019 as well. Do you know, so he's not exactly doing too bad for himself, in my opinion. But yeah, no, he does look a lot more fired up. Even calling on the Kerry supporters to come and support them against Armagh. Do you know, there was a real call from real captaincy sort of role from him this year. He's been captain before. I know he's not captain this year, but just a real confidence about him and a real leadership role from him, it seems like this year. He's really taken it on. And it feels like last year's defeat to Armagh and the defeat to Dublin the previous year has really stung Kerry in a way that they've said, we cannot allow this to happen again. We got to get over the line. And especially this year now, they've got to be looking at this as an unbelievable opportunity to win the All-Ireland, because you look at Donegal, like as much as Meath did beat Kerry, they don't lie down twice. We saw with the great Kilkenny team that lost to Galway, got trounced by them in the 2012 Leinster final. What did they do? They hammered them in a replay. Do you know, Kerry would have taken big learnings from that defeat in Tullamore, and they would have been saying to themselves, if they'd be saying to themselves, if Meath get over Donegal, we got to make sure we give them a lesson after the last day. And they'd be looking at Donegal as well and thinking, listen, Monaghan showed in their first half against them that they're vulnerable. We can absolutely go and tear at them and beat them. So in my opinion, yeah, Kerry looks so fired up this year, and that win against Armagh, I mean, momentum is a beautiful thing in sport, so it could get them over the line.
Exactly. So I have to say the comments are an absolute fire tonight. I'd love to see it, obviously. More comments, much appreciated, lads, absolutely. But we will look at Tyrone's scores, and we'll look at their journey to the final, first of all, before seeing their scores. And yeah, the Ulster Championship, they beat Cavan comprehensively, I would say, 124 to 20 points. I watched that game. Tyrone were controlled for most of it. Against Armagh, they lost with a last-minute score, last hooter score for Rory Grugan, 23 points to 22 in the end. Then in the All-Ireland Senior Football Championship, they beat Donegal in Ballybuffet, 217 to 20 points. Then lost to Mayo, and a lot of people question them after a 217 to 113 defeat. But then against Cavan, 31 points to 18 win, comprehensive that day. And then against Dublin, beating them 23 points to 16, whereas Liam mentioned earlier on, they were absolutely brilliant coming down the home stretch. They've averaged a score of 120 per game and conceded an average of 20 points. And look at the score there, Liam. It's very, very interesting. In goals, particularly, they've only scored 4 goals, but they've only conceded 2. And they've only conceded goals in 1 game in the championship this year, and that was the loss to Mayo as well. So, very interesting stat there from the Tyrone's defensive point of view there. But moving on to their attackers, look at their scores here. Darren McCurry has 37 points. Darragh Canavan has 117. Peter Hart 11 points, but 5 of those 2-pointers, only 1 normal point from Peter there. Niall Morgan with 10 points, Ciara McGeary with 9, Sean O'Donnell has 2 goals on the board. Rory Canavan only 6 points. It's a bit surprising there. Kieran Daly with 5, Michael McKernan, who will be missing for this game, with 5 as well. Matty Donnelly and Con Kilpatrick also among the scorers there. The key stat there from the Tyrone point of view, Liam, there, the goals. They don't score much goals, but they could see very, very little, and very little goal chances as well. The last game against Dublin, I think they only conceded 1 clear goal opportunity, and then again, I think that was because Peter Tate slipped. Unfortunate. So like Tyrone are very, very tight in terms of their defence, in conceding not too many goal chances.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's only when I think about it now that you showed it there, and I've gone over my head, I was like, surely they conceded more than 2 goals. But in my head, I'm like, yeah, no, that's actually right. They haven't conceded more than 2. And the 2 goals they conceded against Mayo, like, Jesus. And I mean, let's be honest as well. The second goal Mayo got that day was a Niall Morgan mistake, you know, missing it in mid, wasn't it? That the ball was coming in high and he just completely misjudged it. So, you know, even then you can even say, well, really, they've only conceded 1 proper goal this season. But
the thing is, that's actually funny. It was that goal where Niall Morgan dropped it, and the other goal against Mayo was a penalty.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, so that just tells you everything you need to know. Like their defense this season has been really, really solid. And when you think of it as well, considering the 2-pointers are in, conceding 20 points to Donegal, like only 20 points is very good going. 16 against Dublin is very, very good going, to be honest with you. 18 against Cavan, albeit they had 31 points on the board. as well. Like, you know, is very solid going as well. So no, their defense this season has been really, really good. And I mean, look, when you look at Tyrone's defense, like when you look at the players that they do have, I mean, Port Hamsey, if you ever needed a man to just man mark someone and follow, like the way he was following Con O'Callaghan around when he came on, even on one leg, the way he was following him around all the time the last day in the quarterfinal was hilarious, to be honest with you. But it was absolutely it's fantastic to see that he's so dedicated to, you know, just stopping the absolute target man on a team. Niall Devlin as well, Rory Brennan, like these are top class defenders who will give you 100% every single game, and that is something that Kerry will have to be wary of. And it is the one thing that maybe I think about it now, Tyrone probably won't give maybe a Shawnee O'Shea or maybe David Clifford, but more so just because he's that good that he can find space away from anybody. But Tyrone probably won't give the space to Kerry that Armagh did. They'll be very, very wary of that. And like you said, their defence this year has been that good that it will be a real tough test for Kerry. Having said that, though, Kerry got in for 3 goals in the league against them. So they've been able to break them down already this year. So, and on a much nicer surface at a much better time of the year, it could be interesting to see how that transpires from a few months ago. So, but yeah, no, Tyrone's defence has been solid this year. Like I said, they don't score a lot of goals, but they do get a lot of points. You know, 23 against Dublin, 31 against Cavan, 217 against Donegal, you know, in my opinion, was still a very good scoreline. 22 against Armagh. So their scoring this year has still been very, very solid. And yeah, look, their attack is fantastic. Their defence is solid. They're a team that in the next 5 years could definitely win, if not 1, 2 All-Irelands potentially. I don't think it will be this year. I just think if they're on the other side of the draw, I probably actually fancy their chances of getting to the final this weekend. But I just think this Kerry team, they're fired up this year. When Clifford and O'Shea are in this type of form, I think they can drive any team to a win. So I just think this could be a game that could go to extra time. That's the truth of it. This could genuinely go to extra time. But I'm still gonna just edge it to Kerry.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see what happens. Gavin is saying here, you could say Tyrone's only real bad performances this year were both against Mayo, obviously the league and the championship. Overall, they're in great momentum. Peter saying here, lads, for ye, what is the grain of rice that tips the scale here? And that leads us well on. It's a prediction time, obviously. You're saying Kerry will win the game, and you're pretty definitive on that. I'm going to agree with you. I think Kerry will win the game as well. Look, I think Kerry's attack has been absolutely flying this year. Generally, look, the Kerry team has been announced actually, and it says Paul Ganey and Paddy Clifford are both on the bench.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert, lads, I think both of them are going to start. I think Paddy has to start. I genuinely think he's kind of the ticking bomb in that Kerry team in many ways. He came on against Armagh. I'm not just saying that he came on and everything was rosy at the garden all of a sudden for Kerry, but he does make that team tick. So I'm going to say Kerry will win the game, but it will be very, very tight. Peter's saying in here, for me, Kerry forward power and 2-pointer mastery. Mastery, anyway. Look, it should.
We're only half an hour in, Matthew. We can't start losing our minds yet.
Exactly. But to be fair, Tyrone has a good 2-point kickers as well. Peter Hart, especially. Kieran McGeary kicked a good 2-pointer against Dublin. Darren McCurry's well capable of it as well. So I don't think, yeah, exactly. So it isn't all said and done that Tyrone don't have bad 2-point kickers. I just feel like, but the thing is, what is so fascinating, Kerry's lethal attack with Clifford and O'Shea, potentially Paul Ganey as well, if he starts against Tyrone's path defence, who's going to win? Like, it's going to be very, very fascinating. But we're both predicting Kerry. It should be very, very interesting anyway. And we will see what happens on Saturday between Tyrone and Kerry. It should be a very interesting game. Look at the other All-Ireland Senior Football Championship semi-final. Meath against Donegal on Sunday at 4 p.m. on RT2 live from Croke Park. Obviously, Meath's first All-Ireland semi-final since 2009. Donegal's second All-Ireland semi-final since 2015. So neither of these sides are actually used to being here. So it's a fair achievement for both of them to be here. So it should be a very interesting game, Liam. But I want to bring up something beforehand. Like, that song about Meath is in my head. M-A-T-T Costello, Jordan Morris scoring goals. That is now in my head, man. Like that. Have you seen that song on social media? It's
I saw it earlier today. Yeah, I saw it on my lunch break, and I was singing it on my desk for. Oh Jesus! Sorry. Oh no, we can't start singing it again because it's gonna get stuck in my head again. I'm gonna be singing it in my sleep.
We all will, to be fair. I know counties have their own songs as well. Like I threw up a few in terms of them. Instagram has that feature in terms of putting on songs above posts now, and I put 38 and counting above Kerry. Come on, Tyrone, but Philomena Begley for 2021 over the Tyrone one. Jimmy's winning matches over Donegal. I actually put on Royals from Lord over Meath. I don't know, is that the right song choice? I heard us after Meath beat Galway. A lot of people were using it, so I said I may as well. But I'm actually regretting. Maybe I could have used that song if it was available.
Yeah, look, if they get past this weekend, you gotta go sought after it.
Sean O'Malley singing here. New G stands for geezer. It is, to be fair. It's like the summer anthem. Like
that was a banger. We can admit that.
That was yeah.
Banger of a tune.
Anyway, back to the game, back on the pitch. Mark Bennett, welcome to the show, Mark, obviously. I think that's the first time he has commented on the show. He's saying it will be interesting to see if Donegal can play the regular game in 28-degree heat for 70 minutes. That is an interesting aspect, definitely. Surely Jimmy's winning matches, 3 will appear, says Peter Griffin here. And Gavin's saying here, if you're a Meath, you are insulted by some people's narrative. Dublin were written off. Kerry were off and Galway were off. Yeah, exactly. He's saying Dublin were off, Kerry were off, and Galway were off. Yeah. At the same time, though, when you look at the Kerry game, though, Meath were missing a lot of players, including Costello.
Yeah.
Let's not forget that. So they had a lot of injuries there. And James Conlon was missing for that game as well. Sean O'Malley singing here. Sean O'Malley singing here. Morris was there against Kerry, I think. But he wasn't there against Dublin. Against Dublin.
Yeah, that's the game.
So Meath have played missing players as well. Sean O'Malley saying here, how come when Meath always the discussion has to be how bad the other teams were. Rudders saying here, Donegal by 5 will be shocked with a Meath win. And Peter saying here, the heat and Donegal's flurry of games this year could be a Meath positive. Then again, Meath have played 8 games themselves. So it's going to be very, very interesting to see. Albeit, to be fair, they played Cardo in the first game. So other than that, it has been difficult opponents, but we'll see what happens. But yeah, Liam, interesting enough game here. But I think a lot of people are expecting Donegal to win it. But Meath have proven, and you look at this, I'll throw up the stats later, but Meath have proven they belong in the All-Ireland semi-finals.
Would you believe me if I told you right now, I actually have a feeling Meath will win this weekend. I've actually thrown it out there. I actually think, I'm actually not even like messing here. I actually have a weird feeling they could win it. Just like, I'm sorry now, people can say all they want about Dublin were off or Kerry were off or Galway were off. At the end of the day, there's always 2 sides to every game. You can always say another team was off, but you got to give appreciation to the team that's on it. Do you know, I watched the Meath Dublin game a few months. Thanks, Peter. God, I'm gonna be. I pissed off Galway people, and now I'm gonna be giving up about Donegal. People are coming after me, and the West are coming after me. Everyone's coming after me. Throw a tenner on me. No. I'm not a betting man. I'm not doing that. But no, I don't know what it is. Donegal. I saw them against Monaghan in the first half, and really, Monaghan should have won that game. Donegal had a terrific second half. But Monaghan outplayed them in that first half. Donegal lost to Tyrone. They could easily have lost the Ulster final. Do you know, there could come a stage where it all comes tumbling down, especially with as well our good friend Jim McGuinness, who I admire very much as a man and as a manager and how he approaches things. As much as I understand what he's trying to do and trying to get all the Donegal crowd on his side, they've given out about the places they have to go to and the scheduling and all this. It doesn't help. I don't think it helps, to be honest with you. I think it could backfire on him potentially, and this could be the weekend it happens. And against the Meath team, who they've beaten Dublin this year. I watched them against Dublin. There was nothing lucky about that win. They were outrageously good against Dublin. They deserved the 4-point win. There's a reason why they were up by 12 points at halftime, 17-5. Like, they were outstanding that day. Against Kerry were off all they want, but Meath were unbelievable that day. They were absolutely savage that day. You know, they tore them apart. And against Galway the last day, listen, Galway got their 2 goals in quick succession. And at that point, I thought maybe Galway could have kicked on from there and seen the game out, taken it as a tough day, but they got the result in the end. And the way Meath came back and saw the game out, I know there was the controversy around the final play of the game, whether the ball was out and whether Galway actually had the right to kick the ball, get a kick out and get the game up and running again. But regardless, I think Meath did enough to win that game, and to knock out Galway, to beat Kerry, to beat Dublin, to even beat the likes of yourselves in the All-Ireland series this year, even to come back from 10 points down against us and to win that game as well. Like, there's just something different about them this year in the championship. And like you said, Jordan Morris, Matty Costello, and not even just them. The rest of the Meath squad as well. Owen Frayne in the Leinster Championship in particular was absolutely outstanding. Conor Duke is a very, very underrated player. I mean, Sean Rafferty has probably arguably been the best fullback this season. He's definitely in line for an all-star. Do you know? Look, Donegal probably are further down the road, but this is about right now. Donegal long-term potentially could be further down the road. But it all depends on what happens on the day as well. It all comes down to what happens on the day. You can talk. Games aren't won on paper. They're not won in the media. They're won on the day. And there's no reason why Meath will have anything to fear about Donegal. They conceded 120 against Monaghan, 217 against Tyrone. They were very close to drawing against Mayo as well, a Mayo team that haven't exactly had the best of years themselves. You know, they conceded 28 points against Armagh, albeit after extra time. You know, they've had their moments this year. They absolutely have. I mean, I'm not even writing off Donegal. I'd have no problem with Donegal winning the All-Ireland. I'd love to see Donegal winning the All-Ireland, you know, because to see Michael Murphy come back after being gone for so long and to win an All-Ireland, to see the O'Donnells win an All-Ireland, McBrearty win another All-Ireland, I think would be absolutely fantastic. Oisin Gallen is a player who deserves it. Kieran Moore, all these players, they have a terrific panel. Patter Morgan, I love watching him play. You know, they have a terrific panel. They have terrific forward line, and I love Jim McGuinness as a manager. I think he's just a top-class coach. But I just have a sneaky feeling. I don't think Meath will win the All-Ireland. I think if Kerry get past Tyrone, I think Kerry just win it outright. And if Tyrone were to get over Kerry, I have a feeling Tyrone would probably have enough to get over them the next day. And eventually Meath, Jesus, if they were to beat Donegal and then either Tyrone or Kerry after that, I think it'd be the greatest All-Ireland win of all time to beat all the teams that they have this year. And after being in Division 2 at the start of the year as well, and probably against the odds this year to even do anything of huge notice. But yeah, and especially, yeah, I didn't realize that as well. I forgot about that. 30-degree heat on Sunday. They're going to be sweating buckets on that pitch. And I just think if Costello is in form, if Jordan Morris is on the ball, then I just feel like Meath might just be able to sneak an out 2-point win.
Interesting. And a new commenter as well. A new commenter in here, Colin Irwin. Welcome to the show, Colin. Colin is saying here, Meath will be no push over. Jimmy might not be winning this match. Sean O'Malley asked the question in the comments, is James Conlon still injured? And just as well for Colin, because I wouldn't have answered that question. He did, in fairness to him, yes, James Conlon won't be playing any more football this year, which is a shame. Like, as we'll look at the scores later, he's done absolutely brilliant in terms of that. Peter Griffin commenting here, and if you were a mighty player, Jimmy got the ball. I think that's just delivers from Jimmy's winning matches, to be honest. Rudder's saying here, Meath will need goals. Can't see them outscoring Donegal by points. We will look at the scores and the journey to the final now. We'll start off with Meath in terms of their journey to the final. And yeah, they started off the journey by beating Carlow a long way out, 130 to 19 points. And remember back then, Liam, we were all talking about what would be the Meath kind of momentum switch. What will happen after Martin Corey and Joe McMahon left the backroom team? What will happen with Meath? They beat Carlow quite comprehensively, but the next test they got was against Offaly, and they beat them 125 to 21 points in Navan. A brilliant comeback win there. Then a historic win over Dublin, the first championship win over Dublin in 15 years, 23 points to 116. Lost the Leinster final, a setback against Louth, 314 to 118, but they got back up on the horse then, beating Cork in Navan 113 to 12 points. I was at that game, and Meath were the much better team that day. Roscommon, they probably should have won that game, but they drew it at the end, 21 points to 215. Then beat Kerry 122 to 16 points, and then beat Galway that magnificent day in Croke Park 216 to 215. They've averaged a score of 121 per game, I could see an average of 216. And this is why I'm appealing about Meath, I suppose, early in their place at the semi-final. Their average winning margin is 5 points. Like, that's really, really good. Look at the scores here. Owen Frayne, as Liam mentioned, has done brilliant, 36 points this year. Matty Costello with 125. Rory Kinsella, another guy who's been absolutely superb, 1 goal and 18 points. Unfortunately, as Colin Irwin said there, James Conlon won't be playing any more football, but he did contribute 116 in the championship. Jordan Morris back in the fold, obviously, during the season, and is now one of Meath's main forwards, again with 2 goals and 12 points. Connor Duke up there with 13, the goalkeeper Billy Hogan up there, Brian Menton up there as well from a Meath point of view. But look at those stats there, Liam. Not just the sides they've beaten, an average winning margin of 5 points. They have players on 36 points in Frayne, 125 in Costello, 118 in Rory Kinsella, a guy who we didn't talk about, by the way.
Yeah.
They have done absolutely brilliantly this year. It's not, I would say, a normal underdog story where, they scrape over the line in these games, even against Dublin. Like, they beat Dublin by 4 points. They beat Cork by 4 points. They beat Kerry by 9. Okay, they beat Galway by a point, but all other quarterfinals are obviously going to be tight either way. They've done exceptional.
Exceptional, yes, exactly. That's why I can't accept if people say they've had play teams on their off days, because at the end of the day, you look at the scorelines. They beaten Dublin by 4 points. They had them bet by half time. They did the damage in the first half. Do you know? I think they scored the first 12 points, 13 points of the match. Do you know? That's how much better they were than Dublin. And really, if Louth didn't get those goals, Meath would have won that Leinster final. Louth just found goals out of nowhere, and I still have a superstition that because of 2010, it was always written in the stars that Louth were going to win the game. There was always just something that said to me, Louth will win this game through hell or high water. And it's no real surprise to me that Meath are now in a better position, just because I said Louth are probably still on the beer after winning that Leinster final, and you can't blame them either, do you know? But yeah, no, what was that score there? 7 goals and 168 points. That's I think it was in 8 games. Like, that is 160. Like, that is scary. That's a scary amount of scores in a season. Like, that is outrageous scoring in every overall throughout a season. 130 against Carlow, 125 against Offaly, 23 against Dublin, 122 against Kerry. Like, those are unbelievable score lines to be putting up, you know. And like you mentioned earlier, the Roscommon game, they should have won it. I don't know. When they're looking back now, they must be thinking.
Well, I don't know, is that bias, Gavin, or I don't know, honestly.
They should have had the chance to beat me. They were looking. But they were well ahead at one point, though, weren't they?
I thought they were well ahead at half time, if memory serves me correctly.
I thought.
And then Enda Smith was brilliant in the second half and turned the game, and that's it.
Well, Enda Smith would do that, to be fair. He is a terrific footballer, to be fair to him. Arguably the best footballer Roscommon have produced over the last number of years, to be honest with you. Bar, obviously, the brothers, what's their names again? Off the top of my head, I can't. The Murtaghs, sorry, yeah. Yeah. But anyways, no, I think Meath have had a terrific season. Now, Meath are one of these traditional counties that getting to an All-Ireland semi-final, even after as long as they haven't been there, it's great. But when they get this far, they want to win it. It's no different to Tipperary last weekend. It's no different to yourselves, traditional county, in hurling terms. You want to get to this stage, but it's about winning. It's about getting to the next stage and going on, and nothing less than winning the All-Ireland will do. Like, for a county like mine, if we'd gotten to the All-Ireland semi-finals this year, if we'd lost semi-final, okay, tough, but we'd have been probably still delighted to have gotten there and it'd be seen as progress. Whereas at Kilkenny, they're devastated to be gone out. So it'd be the exact same for Kerry or Tyrone this weekend, and I have a feeling it'll be the same for Meath and Donegal this weekend. And especially you look at Dublin's golden age at the moment seems to be over for the time being anyway. Armagh are gone, All Ireland champions from last year. I thought Monaghan could have been a real dark horse this year. They're gone as well. I know they were disappointing in the end in the knockout series, but the Leinster football champions are still technically gone. The Connacht champions, Galway, are gone. Mayo are gone. There's a real big opportunity there for the likes of a Meath and a Donegal as well to get to the final this weekend. And yeah, I just think, look, if we're going to be honest about a few things, like Michael Murphy is not going to be marking Sean Rafferty. He's not going to be. He's probably going to be out the field trying to spray the ball out and trying to get himself involved in the play and whatever, and look, they're going to have to put somebody on Morris this weekend. They're going to have to absolutely put somebody on Jordan Morris this weekend and absolutely tighten on Matty Costello as well, because if they let those two run rings around them, then it could be a long afternoon for the Donegal defence. So it will be interesting to see from that perspective, but I'm going to stick with it. I'm going to stick with Meath winning the game, and I think we're getting a Kerry Meath final.
Have to see what happens. A few comments in here from Peter Griffin saying that have Meath ever played Kerry in a semi? They have, 2009. I remember that game. Meath had Joe Sheridan and Cian Ward as Stephen Bray at that time, but it was a boring game of football. It really was. And Kerry, that was the year Kerry were absolutely awful for the whole season, other than 2 games against Dublin and Cork, and they win the All-Irelands. So there's trivia for you. Meath and Donegal, have they ever met in a semi before? I'm actually just checking now. I think they have. Meath and Donegal back in the 90s or something around that.
Did they meet in the 90s when Donegal won the All-Ireland? Was it 92 when Donegal won, or was it 93? I can't remember off the top of my head now.
It could have been. I'm trying to check now. This is Donegal Live. I'm looking at it says past meetings would have been on this. I'm sure they actually met, yeah. They definitely met in the qualifiers in 2017 and the Super 8s in 2000. The qualifiers in 2017 and the Super 8s in 2019. I remember that. 1992 Donegal. Oh yeah, Peter Griffin is saying there. Gavin is saying here, Meath had the win in the first half. That's why they were in the lead. And then the Smith missed the penalty in the second half again. Fair play to Meath for getting the best out of the rules. Anthony Malloy, the captain. I think it's Anthony Miles. Was it Peter? I remember. I know Anthony Miles and off the ball, obviously. And then Mark Benessing, 1990. So they have probably met in the 90s, Meath and Donegal in a semi-final. But we will look at Donegal's journey to the final now. And obviously, as Jim McGuinness has been referencing throughout the whole season, it has been a long journey. In the Ulster Senior Football Championship, they beat Derry 125 to 15 points, a 10-point victory there. They beat Monaghan 23 points to 21 in Clonus. Then beat down 119 to 16 points, and then that extra time winning the Ulster final over Armagh on a scoreline of 223 to 28 points. Then against Tyrone, they lost that game in the opening All-Ireland group game, 217 to 20 points. Hammer Cavan, 3 goals to 26 points to 113, and then beat Mayo with a last-minute Kieran Moore point, 19 points to 115 in Dr. Hyde Park. Then beat Louth 222 to 12 points, and then beat Monaghan in the quarterfinal 126 to 120. They've averaged a score of 123 per game and conceded an average of 116. You look at Donegal's scores there, Michael Murphy obviously on top there with 38 points, Michael Langan on 121, and level in second place is Conor O'Donnell with 218 from play. Not a lot has been said about him. He's been absolutely brilliant this season. Kieran Thompson with 120, as well as that Patrick McBrearty has 120 as well. Oisin Gannon has 19 points. Darragh Boyd with 114. You look at Patrick Bogan there with 13. Shane O'Donnell with 10 points scored. But when you look at his assists, he's done brilliant in terms of that. And Kieran Moore with 17 there for Donegal as well. But you look at the average score they conceded there, Liam. Both sides, Meath and Donegal, have the average concession rate the same, 116. But Donegal have scored on average 2 more points than Meath. Do you think I'm changing your mind there in terms of the averages?
No, I'm still sticking with it. I'm still sticking with it. It was a good attempt. I thought about it for a second. I was like, maybe, but especially when you look at that was a player that actually I meant to mention. Actually, Kieran Thompson, he's been exceptional this season. Like 120 in it's 7, 8, 9 games. Like unbelievable season he's had. But yeah, they're but that's what I mean. They're 2 very similar type of teams, and it won't take like this won't be a one-sided game. I don't think. I definitely don't think that. I'd be very, very shocked if one of these teams came out this weekend with a 8, 9, 10 point win. Do you know? To be honest, I can't see it happening. Do you know? I can certainly see a period where maybe one of them is 5, 6 points up, but I can't see them maintaining that potentially over a long period of time. Do you know? The game could end with a 6-point win for either side, but as we all know, like the game could be 2 points in it with 3-4 minutes to go, and 2 pointers could come into it, and you know yourself. But yeah, I still think Meath might just be able to get over the line. Like let's remember as well, Meath have been able to resiliently get over the line in games against Galway. They've been able to resiliently get over the line against Cork on a really, really shocking day. You know, it was not the day that the wind and the rain was just absolutely torrential. I could barely see what was happening when I was watching the Saturday game that night. It was horrific. You know, and they've been able to grind out results this year when they've had to, as well as winning the games like the Kerry game, you know, in such convincing fashion. So no, I'm going to back Meath. I'm going to back Meath to get the job done. And I'm going to back them to be taking on Kerry in the All-Ireland final. And look, it's probably just a spoiler already from my behalf, but I do still think Kerry will win the All-Ireland this year. But I think for Meath to even just get back to the All-Ireland final after probably not being predicted to do anything, or not do anything, but of anything of this large scale at the start of the year, I still think it'd be a marvellous achievement for them.
It would be a marvellous achievement, but in terms of my prediction, I would say, I'm sorry, I'm sticking to the status quo. I'm going to go with Donegal. I just feel like, look, like the thing is, Jim McGuinness in his second year, I remember in his first term in 2011, they were kind of inexperienced and going into that game against Dublin and fell short. Again, similarly, against Galway last year, inexperience kind of cost them a small little bit and they fell short in that game, even though it wasn't as bad as the 2011 performance. But then in 2012 against Cork, they were ready. They were ready in that semi-final. I think they are ready in this semi-final as well against Meath. So I'm going to go for Donegal, but I think it'll be a very, very tight game. But Meath should not be taken lightly at all. Peter Griffin's in here. Jimmy's second year equals All-Irelands. Absolutely. Gavin's in here. Meath, like Monaghan, could be good in the lead at half-time, but Donegal, unlike Galway, should have the legs to see through by a point or 3. So yeah, I'm going to go for Donegal. Liam's going to go for Meath, but we will see what happens in those games. As well as that, there is the Tailteann Cup final as well this weekend. That is the curtain raiser of the Kerry Tyrone game on Saturday. That is Kildare against Limerick. It's on at Croke Park on Saturday at 2:30 p.m. live on RT2. And just to mention as well, the 2 All-Ireland semi-finals are also BBC 2 Northern Ireland for anybody as well if you want to watch it on those channels. But this Kildare and Limerick game, we're going to go straight into the scores and the journeys to the final for both sides. So we'll start off with the favourites for this game, and that is Kildare. So looking at Kildare's journey to the final, they hammered Leitrim in the first game at the Tailteann Cup, 36 points to 11. Yep, that's a real football scoreline there. They beat Tipperary 319 to 111 and then beat Sligo 419 to 124. In the knockout stage, then they knocked out, obviously, awfully sorry, Liam, 117 to 19 points in Newbridge, and then beat Fermanagh in the semi-final 113 to 9 points. They've averaged a score 220 per game and conceded an average of 16 points. You look at Kildare's scores in the Tailteann Cup as well. Alex Byrne has 2 goals and 31 points. Daniel Flynn has 4 goals and 10. Ryan Sinky, a young, talented, brilliant player with 11 points. James McGrath from centre-back or wing-back has got 3 goals and a point, which is exceptional in terms of his goal-getting, I guess. Dara Swords with 7 points. Jimmy Hyland there. Kevin Feeney up there. So is Brian McLaughlin, who was absolutely brilliant in the semi-final win over Fermanagh, especially off the bench. Looking at Limerick's journey to the final, and Limerick are somewhat the surprise packets of this Tailteann Cup campaign. They beat London the first day out, 25 points to 115, beat Antrim 118 to 110, and then beat Westmeath by a point, 19 points to 18. They beat Wexford in the quarterfinal of the Tailteann Cup, 421 to 219, and then beat Wicklow 218 to 117 in the semi-final. They've averaged a score of 121 per game and conceded an average of 116. And when you look at the Limerick scores as well, James Naughton up there with 29 points, Danny Neville with 3 goals and 11, Emmett Richter with 11 points, Peter Nash with 10 points, Josh Ryan with 9 points, Ian Corbett with 1-6, Killian Fahy with 2-1 up there as well from a Limerick point of view. And in terms of fate and everything like that, Liam, I think a lot of people would be will be kind of perplexed by this. Celtic Cup final last year was between the Division 3 runners-up and the Division 4 winners. And the Division 3 runners-up won it, down beating Laois. The same's happened again in Kildare and Limerick. So the omens would say Kildare will win this game, and the fact they are favourites. But what do you think out of this game?
So what your suggestion is that we should have lost the league final and we'd be here this weekend. I'd be heading to Croke Park on Sunday. All we had to do was lose the league final and we'd be playing Limerick this weekend. Can't you tell I'm still not over that defeat in Conlon's Park a few weeks ago? Yeah, look, Kildare at the start of the year, look, they'll probably feel regret still of not beating Louth in that Leinster semi-final, and considering what's happened since, who knows where they could have gone, if they'd gotten to the Leinster final. But the moment they got into the Tailteann Cup, everyone, well, most people anyways, would have been seeing them as the big favourites. A lot of people would have been seeing them as saying, right, you have to win it now this year. You were too good to be in Division 3, albeit they had the 2 defeats and they lost the league final, so there were going to be question marks after that as well. But they've gone through this Tailteann Cup campaign very much unscathed. They've got through it, I wouldn't say comfortably enough, but the group stages were comfortable enough, if we're being honest. The quarter-final was obviously a real nip-and-tuck game against us, but they managed to grind it out in the end. The Fermanagh game, look, if we're going to be frank and honest, Brian Flanagan said it himself, was not a great game, was a poor game, was not a game that you'd be telling your grandchildren about in 50, 60 years' time. But nonetheless, they got the job done. They won the game. That's all that mattered to them. They got over the line. And yeah, look, they're coming into form. And look, like I mentioned there, first of all, James McGrath getting 3 goals and a point this year is absolutely mad, And but he's been brilliant all season, and he's been a real attacking force from wing back all season. But still, to get 3 goals and a point is absolutely savage. I think David Hyland as well has been a real force. I remember watching him against Westmeath in the Leinster Championship, and some of his, I think he got 1 or 2 really top class 2-pointers, and I was thinking, Jesus, he should be playing centre forward, not centre back. But when you look at Alex Byrne the season he's had, I think he's been on fire. Derek Irwin is a really top class footballer. Is sensational for his club Naas as well. Daniel Flynn, on his day, he's unstoppable. Ryan Sink, he's had a fantastic season as well. So Colin Dalton, I've been very impressed with as well. Kevin Feely. So they have the players good enough to win the Tailteann Cup final. There's no question about that. And really, look, as much as I don't want them to win it, shock horror, I don't want Kildare to win the final. I want Limerick to win it, but I just think they will. You'd have to have them as the favourites. Like Limerick, it's been fantastic to see them get to this stage, and even to win games like the Westmeath one in the group stages was absolutely unbelievable, and they deserved it as well. They were 5 points up at one stage, and Westmeath pulled it back, but Limerick managed to grind it out in the end, and it was brilliant to see. And the game against Wexford, I remember I had it on. I can't remember what other match was on that day. I think it might have been Donegal Mayo, but I had the Limerick Wexford game on my phone as well. And my God, it was goals every 10 seconds. It was absolutely splendid to watch, to be honest with you. But yeah, they got over Wicklow the last day. I actually thought Wicklow might have grinded it out in the second half, but Limerick just somehow found a way to dig deep and to get themselves over the line. And yeah, I'm delighted for Limerick though, because look, they've been mostly a hurling they are a hurling county, really, if we're going to be frank and honest about it, and that's where all the focus has been over the last number of years. But the job that Jimmy Lee has done this season has been unbelievable. If they could end the season with a Tailteann Cup as well as promotion back to Division 3 as well, and winning the Division 4 final as well, my God, what a season that would be for them. And it could give them a real boost going into the Munster Championship next year as well. You just never know, and it could get they do have some good young footballers coming in the county as well. I think Darragh O'Hagan is a very underrated presence in the middle of the field, and everyone knows about McNaughton. He's a freak of nature, to be honest with you. He'd start for most teams in the country, in my opinion, if he was given the opportunity. Emmett Rigtor, I think, is a really good player. Peter Nash, I'd watched him a good bit over the years, but I first got to really properly watch him first in the league final this year, get a real sense of what he's like, and I was really impressed with him. And when he got the last day, I think he got 4 points the last day, or maybe it was 5. I'm not sure, but he was really good the last day against Wicklow. So, and you have Danny Neville as well, who was fantastic the last day as well, got a really nice goal. So, yeah, it's look, as much as I would love to see Jimmy Lee's side rock up to Croke Park and get the win and turn Limerick into a football county. I just don't see it. I don't see it happening. I just think Kildare are a team that next year will be looking to challenge for the Leinster title, be looking to challenge Louth, challenge Dublin, probably seeing Dublin now as the real target and saying we can finally now probably beat them. They'll be looking to challenge Meath as well. So I just don't see them losing this time out. You know, I just feel like it just feels like it's Kildare's time. And generally, like Down won it last year, as you'd expect. Probably a bit nerve-wracking for them against Laois, considering what they'd done to them the year before, but they got the job done. Meath were favourites 2 years ago, in my opinion, against Down, and they got the job done over them. Westmeath beat Cavan 3 years ago. I felt that game was maybe a bit of a 50-50, but again, it was no real surprise to see Westmeath winning it at the same time. But yeah, I just think Kildare need to get, like I said, a monkey off their back. They need to get a monkey off their back, and they need to win a title this year. So yeah, look, I just think Kildare will have too much for Limerick this weekend. Could be something like a Kildare 20 points, Limerick 1-9 game, something like that. You know, they could just be in a bit of control throughout the game. Could be close enough at half time, but I just feel like Kildare will have too much in the second half, in terms of their bench and in terms of their starting 15.
Yeah, I think Kildare might have enough in this game as well. So it should be a very interesting game. Hopefully Limerick put up a good show anyway, and they have shown that they have decent players. Even outside the Tailteann Cup, I watched their game against Cork. Obviously, I was at the game. It's some impressive spells. Obviously, they did go down to 14 men in that game after a red card early on in the game. I thought they acquitted themselves really, really well against the Division 2 team in Cork. So look, Limerick football is on the rise, and that is great to see, obviously. Boston Prisoner of War, a new commenter on the podcast as well. Hello from Sydney, Australia. I'm quarter Irish from Limerick, just subscribed and liked, guys. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, man. And he said as well, is this Gaelic football, guys? It absolutely is. It is Gaelic football. Hurling will be next week for the All-Ireland Hurling final preview. Gavin saying an interesting point in here. I think Division 2 fans might be rooting for Kildare, so the seeding for Sam next year is more simpler since Kildare were promoted. It could be more complex if Limerick win it. I think that'll be the case mostly. Will it be, Liam, that most Division 2 teams would want Kildare to win it?
And do you mean like Division 2 teams from this year, including the likes of ourselves and Kildare going up, or just include?
I think that's what Gavin means anyway. Yeah.
Yeah, probably so. I think Limerick winning it from that perspective would probably give the GEA a lot of headaches, to be honest with you. You know, and I suppose, yeah, and we've had the conversations this year about should there be certain teams that just shouldn't be in the Sam Maguire next year. You know, we've looked at how Clare did this year, and there's another team that we mentioned, but we won't. That's a conversation for another day. But yeah, I suppose from that perspective, they probably would prefer to see Kildare winning it from that kind of ideal. But I'm still not supporting them. I still want Limerick to. I went to college in Limerick as well, so I have a bit of a connection there. So I suppose, as much as it'd be great, the Division 2 teams probably still wanting to win it. I hope Limerick win it. Yeah,
it's kind of like in terms of the seeding, you, from our point of view anyway, you'd want Kildare to win it, but seeing Limerick, another Munster county, who are genuinely trying to make an attempt at actually developing their players, unlike Clare, I will say, in fairness to Limerick, they are actually doing very good in trying to develop the football in Limerick. Boston is saying in here, what is Limerick's club called, guys? I'll let the commenters answer that. Peter Griffin is saying in here, lads, one of the key takeaways from Tailteann this year, still some hammerings happening. Yeah, that is true, and obviously Kildare beating Leitrim didn't help the competition in many ways as well, but that is the Tailteann Cup final we were predicting. But for Kildare to win it, there is only one other senior game, and it is the LGFA relegation playoff between Donegal and Leitrim. This game is on at Kilcoyne Park at 2 p.m. on Saturday. It's obviously the relegation playoffs, so it's pretty simple here. The loser gets relegated to intermediate next season. And I suppose, Liam, Donegal have been poor all season, really. They haven't scored that much. Leitrim have acquitted themselves well, but Donegal are more experienced and senior. Will we see a scenario where the experienced campaigners win the game, or do you think Leitrim could nick this one, considering Donegal's bad form?
if you'd have asked me before the relegation qualifiers, I'd have probably said Donegal realistically should wipe the floor with Leitrim. But then you look at Donegal against Armagh. Now, Armagh are a different outfit, let's be honest. I'm still amazed that Armagh were not in the All-Ireland. How they got knocked out by Kildare, I still don't know. There's no disrespect to Kildare. I just think Armagh are a fantastic side. But you saw what they did to Donegal, 15 points to 5. Is a fairly big hammering. Probably in a way worse than the Ulster final, because like you're scoring 5 points in a game and you're conceding 10 extra scores. It's a real dampener. And it could, I don't know, taking beatings like that at times, especially from your close rivals, it could affect you. But and you see Leitrim up, like they were only 5 points down to Mayo with a couple of minutes to go, and then Mayo got the second goal. I think it was on the 56th, 57th minute, and then they managed to see the game out. But Leitrim gave a good account of themselves against Mayo, and against a Mayo team who, maybe not as good as they used to be, but still a Mayo team that were getting to the Connacht final. So it's still all right for them. But no, I think realistically, look, Donegal should be winning this game. Probably not comfortably. I feel like that defeat to Armagh, 10 points defeat, and only, I think was it only two starters, or I think there was only the two starters and possibly one player off the bench that actually got scores in the game. I'll just check here now. No, sorry, it was the three players. Kate Gillespie got a point at wing back, only just seen there, but still, like, only three players getting scores on the day is not a great return, and they're going to need a lot more than that this weekend. They're going to have to not rely so much on Jody McFadden to maybe get them over the line here. And it is important for Donegal to stay in the senior grade. I feel like Leitrim, as much as the relegation would hurt, I feel like getting relegated back to Intermediate wouldn't affect them potentially as much, considering some of the batterings that they did take this year, especially the one against Dublin, which was a real dampener of a day for them. But I think for Donegal to get relegated, it'll be a disaster. No different to Wexford in the Camogie against Derry. I just feel like it should be inevitable that one side should stay up and the other side probably would have no harm in potentially going back down. But I think Donegal should get over the line this weekend. I wouldn't say it would be a shock now if Leitrim stayed up, but certainly had he said this to me before their game against Mayo, I'd have definitely been saying that it would have been a shock.
I'm going to go for the shock in this one. I think Leitrim might beat Donegal.
Oh.
Because, I'm going to go for... I just feel like Leitrim scored 13 points against Mayo is actually decent enough in a relegation semi-final, in my opinion. And they did compete very, very well. Whereas Donegal have been out of the game really nearly every game. They scored 1-2 against Galway, which is very, very low. Against Tipperary, they were very, very poor in that game as well. Whereas Leitrim, yes, against Waterford and Dublin, they were outclassed. But look at Waterford and Dublin. Waterford finished third in Division 1 in the Little League. And Dublin are one of the best teams in the country. So how are Leitrim going to compete there? Whereas I feel like against the Mayos, and potentially if they played them at Donegal, I think Leitrim will actually compete well enough against them. So I feel like Leitrim, there's a shock in them. I think Leitrim might put off the shock and beat Donegal this weekend, but we'll have to see what happens, obviously. And in terms of other LGFA games, there is intermediate and junior semi-finals this weekend. So the intermediate semi-final, you have Laois against Monaghan at 2 p.m. on Saturday, or Sunday, should I say, in Glenn Brothers Piers Park in Longford. The other intermediate semi-final is on at the same time on Sunday at 2 p.m. between Westmeath and Tyrone in Avant Money Park, Shaw McDermott in Carrick-on-Shannon. And then there's a St. Hilary's Park Clonus double-header for the junior semi-finals. And the first semi-final at 2 p.m. on Sunday is between Louth and Longford. The second semi-final on Sunday is between Antrim and Sligo at 4 p.m. on Sunday. So that is the LGFA wrapped up. So the intermediate in Camogie as well, there's the intermediate and Premier Juniors. I wanted to get your opinion on the intermediate semi-finals, obviously, because Offaly are in this. Offaly are playing Antrim at 1 p.m. This is in St. Conleth's Park in Newbridge at 1 p.m. The other semi-final is also at St. Conleth's Park in Newbridge on Saturday. That is between Kerry and Down at 3 p.m. So a double header there in Newbridge. I suppose Antrim and Offaly, that's a difficult draw for you, Liam. But again, it's sort of a 50-50 game.
I think whoever wins this wins the All-Ireland, I'll be honest with you. No disrespect to Meath or Down, but I think both these sides...
Kerry.
Oh, Kerry, sorry. Why that's Jesus, I'm so used to saying the other county. But sorry, it's been a long night. But no, and it's no disrespect to them. Kerry had a very good group campaign, especially the way that I know Carlow were kind of had a iffy kind of group stages, but the way that Kerry dismantled Carlow in the group stages was really, really impressive. But I just think Offaly and Antrim are the two strongest sides left in the competition, and it's a shame because my own club was playing the first round in senior on Sunday, and I would have gone to this Camogie match if it wasn't for that. But yeah, we played earlier on the first round of championship, and it was a 2-point loss for us. But we've responded well since then. Now, Westmeath, me, and Carlow obviously probably not on the same level as Antrim. But I was speaking to David Sullivan earlier today, and as I said to him, you still need to go out and get a response out of the team and build a bit of momentum. And that's exactly what they've done. They got 3 goals against Meath, 3 goals against Antrim, 2 against Westmeath, and 3 against Carlow. They're scoring goals for fun at the moment. They're starting games quick. Claude Lahi's having terrific games in the midfield. The Teehans are on fire at the moment. Offaly's backline is going really well as well. So, yeah, it's going to be a really tricky game. And look, both sides I feel like are very evenly matched, to be honest with you. I think it will be a real intriguing battle. And do you know what? I'm gonna back us, and I'm gonna say we're gonna reach the All-Ireland final. I think it'd be brilliant if they did. Do you know, I just think, like, as much as we probably weren't as close to Wexford in the Leinster Championship as the scoreline would suggest, there still was only 3-14 to 1-16. So there was still only 4 points in it in the end. You know, it shows that we're on the right track. We are getting there as a county, and I think after losing the semi-final last year against Cork in the way that we did, which probably last year felt a bit like bonus territory getting that far because it was still a relatively young squad, and it still is a relatively young squad. But I just think sometimes you have to lose a big game to win another one the next year. And I think this is our time to win that game this year. And I think if we do get to the final, then I feel it's ours to lose after that. So I think it'll be close. And Antrim are absolutely, by no stretch of the imagination, pushovers. But I think David Sullivan's side is going to get the win.
Interesting. Yeah, I think Offaly, they've shown well in this Camogie season so far, Division 2A, especially the league. That final against Derry, wiped them aside with ease. Antrim are very, very good, though, with the likes of Meath, Kerry, Fionnuala Kerry, and Roisin McCormick. Like, they are some very good players in Antrim. And I would agree with you. I think whoever wins this game looks to be in contention to win the All-Ireland. Kerry's story is absolutely brilliant, in fairness to them, in terms of Camogie. So is Down, to be fair, with the likes of Paul O'Hagan, Sarah Louise Graffin in that team. But I do agree with you. The winner of this game, Offaly and Antrim, will probably win the All-Ireland. I'm going to stick with you. I'm going to go for Offaly to win that game as well. Peter saying here, lads, what do you make of the Hell for Later 5-parter documentary series? I haven't got around to watching it yet, Peter. I will get around to watching it. It seems to be an absolutely brilliant show.
Yeah, no, it's a really well put together show, to be honest. I really, really enjoyed it. It's very well made, well documented. The stories that they've got behind the origins of Gaelic football and the games that they've shown from the past. And what's amazing is you look at the hits back then in some of the games and the dirty Dublin side of the 70s and the 80s, and Mick O'Dwyer's famous Kerry sides of the past, and the Down teams that won the All-Irelands back in the 60s, whatever. Obviously, Derby's goal in 82, I had to get that one in. And then you have all the successes of the Kerry teams, the battles they had with Cork as well. It was a very well-made documentary. Shane Walsh spoke really well on it as well. I thought that the Galway footballer, I thought he spoke really, really well in it. It came across really, really well. So, it's a really well. Paul Rouse as well, a historian. He's an excellent GA journalist at the Irish Examiner. Brilliant podcast as well. I'd really recommend it. It's an excellent series. The BBC at the moment are showing. Do you remember that hurling thing that they did a couple of years ago as well, like the Gaelic football one?
Oh, what was it? I remember
It was like the story
the premise,
of hurling or something like that. I think that's what it's
something
called.
like that. Yeah, I can't remember the title off the top of my head, but that was a brilliant talk. Yeah.
Yeah, the BBC are currently showing those episodes at the moment, and of course, with it being summer and there's no Champions League during the week, me and my family have just watching it back. The game, yes, that's what it's called.
Yeah.
So when there's no Champions League on TV and when the women's Euros games are over, we find ourselves watching those things on TV instead of a movie at 10 o'clock at night. So, but great watches.
Yeah. Absolutely great watches, without a doubt, in terms of that. Peter Griffin obviously emphasised that as a hurling doc. The Premier Junior semi-finals actually are next weekend, so my bad there. But there is the under-23 camogie final on this Saturday as well at 2 p.m. in the TUS Gaelic Road. So it is between Cork and Galway. This is the first year of the under-23A competition in that as well. Obviously, we won't have the relevant insights, obviously, to predict the game, but just as a side note, best of luck to the West Cork contingent competing for Cork in the under-23 final. Claire Kingston, Dara O'Brien, Millie Condon and Amy McCarthy. So best of luck to them in the under-23 final this weekend from Cork and Galway point of view. Best of luck to Galway as well and the whole Cork team in the under-23 final this weekend. So that is all the action wrapped up on a podcast that went on for 1 hour 25 minutes. What a show. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff. It has been a brilliant show, obviously. Thanks to Liam for hopping on. Thanks to Capture Athletics for sponsoring today's show. And there's one more comment in here just before we end it. Peter Griffin is saying here, thanks lads, great preview class as always. Thank you very much, Peter, for the comment as well. And as well as that, thanks to all the commenters. Thank you to Boston, the Prisoner of War. Thank you to Colin Erman, Rudders, Mark Bennett, Acers, Kid Cuddy, Gavin O'Reilly and Sean O'Malley. Thank you to everybody that commented on the show as well. As always, check out Liam's new podcast, The Faithful Podcast as well. Check out Capture Athletics for the best gear around as well. Watch the games at the weekend. Enjoy the games at the weekend. Ring the bell for any notifications for any podcasts coming up. We will have the All-Ireland Hurling Final next week in terms of a preview, so do not miss that. We will see you next week. Take care and enjoy the games at the weekend.